Hi, this is Christopher from Loft Community Services, the Transitional Age Youth Program. You may have already listened to the presentation on the value of peer support work, and now I'm going to bring the conversation to how to recruit and effectively orient peers within your program. The first question many people ask is who can be a peer? And I like to stress that the qualities of a peer worker are an alchemy of lived experience in the mental health sector, a willingness to represent their lived experience, and a readiness to transition from being a client to an employee within the agency. And most importantly, bringing passionate care about supporting others in their unique recovery journey. Something to be mindful of within our program is that clients who want to become peer workers have to transition from being a service recipient to becoming an employee. There's a number of supports and conversations that need to be had in order for that to happen, and I won't be discussing that here. But it's important that the staff and the organization are preparing the client for the supports that they may need in order to make this transition effective. There's also an importance about talking about how this client is going to be sharing their lived experience and coaching them around their boundaries and how they can share their story without having to divulge too much. Within the Transitional Age Youth Program, we have led a number of focus groups from our peers. We've asked our peers what do they think are the qualities of a prospective peer. And here are a number of features that they have said: an active sense of engagement in their own life, a willingness to take responsibility if needed, ongoing maintenance of resilience, determination, and hope, openness to learning and feedback, consistency in meetings and appointments, and able to be sober while working. I put an asterisk on the ongoing maintenance of resilience and determination of hope because there's often an unspoken pressure that peers fear on themselves to maintain, and I'm using air quotations here, being well and staying well. And that can create all kinds of pressures that peers have to navigate within the position of their role. And I'm going to speak to that now. As I said, peers feel an extra pressure to stay well. They feel that they have to be role models of what it looks like to be successful and not experience any symptoms of mental health. That can create undue pressure on them, and it can also make it very difficult for them to come forward and speak to you, their supervisors, or their team about how they may be struggling. It's important to create a culture that emphasizes the recovery philosophy and how it's more important than symptom management, stressing that being a role model or a peer is living the reality that we all will experience periods where our work becomes harder, connection is challenging, and our vulnerabilities increase. We also are coaching peers to say that to be a role model is to demonstrate how, when we struggle, we manage our mental health, we manage our support needs, and we continue to do what we can. The takeaway here is to provide the context for peers to live the full spectrum of their experience and combat internalized stigma via supervision that promotes realistic expectations and self compassion. Earlier in another presentation, I talked about ethical inclusion and the importance for communication. It's highly important that peers and their supervisors are clearing up any unspoken expectations or pressures that are happening for the peer and being very clear in communication and what the peer needs to do and where they have options to take breaks and take care of themselves. I often like to remind peers about self compassion around working with shame and stigma, and I often use the work of Brene Brown. I love this quote because true belonging only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect selves to the world. Our sense of belonging can never be greater than our own level of self acceptance. So, what makes a peer and what are the qualifications that a peer needs? It's essential to highlight key qualifications and the description of the peer support role to ensure the structure of how the peer will succeed. Identifying what the key qualifications are and the roles a peer we're going to play will help flag the skills that are going to be necessary. Not all peers are going to need to have these skills in order to start the job, but at least we can flag and identify what we're going to need to do in order to coach the peer and mentor them in order to grow in their position. For Love Community Services, we have created a best practice manual for peer support work, and we have many recommendations within that manual about how to structure your qualifications and begin to coach peers within that work. Peer Support Canada also lists a number of competencies that they recommend that peers should be encouraged to build and hone within the context of their work: interpersonal relationships, demeanor, communication, critical thinking, hope, self-management and resiliency, flexibility and adaptability, self-awareness and confidence, initiative and commitment, teamwork, continuous learning and development. All of this provides clarity on what to look for when hiring a peer and what to foster and support and grow on the job. It's also important to make this position appear and be the actual clinical serious position that it is. At Loft Community Services, we actually have cultivated and created a peer support worker job description. This demonstrates thoughtfulness and intentionality around hiring peers and demonstrates what the peer is going to be responsible for and the qualifications that we're looking for. Again, this highlights what they will be expected to do from the outset and how the work culture is going to support them in completing their job. So once you've recruited peers and you've attracted them and scheduled interviews, it's important to also establish different methods for assessing and interviewing. Peers may have no prior work experience, and thus the typical skills-based interview questions will not be appropriate. It's a more helpful and effective if you develop interviews that look at process, problem solving, critical thinking, how they relate to humans, and how they would deal with difficult situations, how they have managed their own difficult situations in their personal life and interpersonal life. The takeaway here is to create an interview that is process based and can highlight a peer's readiness, their self care strategies, their critical and reflexive thinking, as well as their openness to learn and receive feedback. Here are examples of some of the questions that we would ask in an interview for peers. How do you allocate self care in times of stress? What are three of the most important things to you on a job? What would others say is your greatest strength or gift? Describe a time where you had to set interpersonal boundaries to address a situation with someone. All of these open ended questions provide an opportunity for the peer to demonstrate their critical thinking, things that they value, and how they may take care of themselves on the job, setting them up with an unspoken and maybe now clear expectation that part of this work is their responsibility to take care, and this organization is flagging that and identifying that this is necessary and they will be there to support. Final note on the recruitment: be intentional around recruitment. Try to reduce barriers that might be inhibiting people from applying, from interviewing, from doing well in the whole recruitment process. Also, accommodate diversity. Try to recruit from diverse communities and lived experiences of marginalization. Also, consider how criminal records could be a barrier to employment and reflect on whether criminal histories have any real bearing on the work roles and position. Depending on what the work position, some of the criminal histories may not be applicable, and see if there's an opportunity within your larger organizational policies and procedures, whether there can be to flex that to create more opportunities for peers to transcend that previous experience. Recruitment is ideal from former clients of your program or agency. So it's ideal that the clients have received services from your program. It's not necessarily essential, but if clients have actually gone through the whole procedure of intake, service access, and challenges within your program, they can both give the feedback of what their lived experience directly to colleagues and to higher management, but also to support clients in what they may be feeling when they access the program for the first time. Thank you very much for the presentation. The next one that I'll be providing is on the supervision of peers.